Right, right. I was a wrestler, and at the Naval Academy, they didn't have women's wrestling. So I kind of fell into boxing by accident because it was a requirement for all freshmen at the Naval
Mm.
Academy to take wrestling and to do boxing for a semester. So boxing was never originally a part of my plans. My plans are really to be a collegiate wrestler. I'm glad it didn't happen because I don't know where I'd be today had I gotten my way, you know?
And we're live. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to All Smith. Today's guest is one of the best boxers in Naval Academy history. She's a U.S. Marine Corps captain and a 5-time elite national boxing champion and a 2-time brigade champion, a member of the varsity track and field team at the Naval Academy, and she's simply a Jack, aka a Jacqueline of all trades. None other than Stephanie Simon. Welcome to the show, yo.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro. That was beautiful.
I
That was
run out of
awesome.
breath. I had to pick probably 5 things to share with our audience today, and it was tough because you've got so many things on your resume that you've just kind of chipped away at it over the course of time, and it's really cool to see that you've accomplished all of these things at the ripe age of 30. You're so young, and you've got just this huge reservoir of not only potential left to share the world after boxing, but all of the things that led up to the now. Stephanie, it's pretty dope.
Thank you. No, thank you for that. I think it's just kind of because since I was little, I've always had a million different things that I was interested in. I was the athlete, but I was the band geek, but I was the student. I was all about the military too. So it's kind of just like, I don't know. I didn't want to give up anything. I wanted to kind of hold on to some of those random things like being able to play the trumpet. And
It's very cool, and it also just shows the insight of often in my world being a coach, we talk about the art of coaching,
mhm.
but there's the art of being an athlete, but also just the art of being a human, and the variability associated with interests, and the fact that boxing seems to be the thing that you've gotten the most notoriety or accolades for.
Mhm.
But the fact that you were a part of the Glee Club, you're part of different a cappella groups, you're getting ready to play around with some different music video type things in the future with a cousin of yours there in LA. There's some cool stuff that just shows how your mind works a little bit. And hopefully today through our conversation, we can peel back the layers of the onion so some of our community can see how a high performer like yourself operates.
Thank you. And I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about it and to share with you guys the craziness behind it all. So,
Yeah, for sure. Before we jump into some of your background, September 27th, you've got a big event coming up. What's that looking like?
yes. So September 27th is my professional boxing debut. Um, it'll be in Atlanta, Georgia, and it'll be on the undercard of the Alicia Baumgardner world title defense. Actually, so for people that aren't familiar with Alicia Baumgardner, she's one of the biggest names in women's boxing right now.
Wow.
So it's an honor to be on her undercard as a first time professional boxer. So usually when you're debuting, it's usually at a smaller level, maybe a more local level, or some people will go to Mexico or something like that, Colombia, to go get a fight. I'm lucky enough to be able to have an opportunity to fight on a big stage, and it's also an all women's card, which you don't see in boxing very often. So I have a handful of friends that are also fighting on this card. They're also having their professional boxing debut, so it's going to be exciting to be in that environment with a lot of friends that I grew up in the amateurs with. So definitely excited. As I was telling you earlier, the weight cut is the not so fun part.
Yeah, that's tough.
Fighting at 140. I used to, when I was at the Naval Academy, I fought at 165. So over
Mm,
the years, I've trimmed down a lot, and I've had to have a lot of discipline. And so now I'm really being strict the next 3 weeks to get that weight down. So
for sure. I want to learn more about that before we unpack that a little bit. What does it mean to you to be such a leader and a liaison for the empowerment of women's sports. We're seeing the growth and development happen right in front of our eyes. You know, everybody's popularizing Caitlin Clark right now in the WNBA.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot more monetization and excitement around women's sports right now, and to me, it's just so cool, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's like checking the box around like what's possible, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on that.
It is truly the most humbling thing in the world to go to where you have once been when you were on top and see the women around you that are now taking over and how much better they are. And
Mm-hmm.
a quick little story I have for that: in 2019, when I was still active duty Marine Corps, I got reached out to by Marine Corps recruiting to present awards at the national championships in Fargo. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the high school national championships for wrestling. They're in Fargo, North Dakota. It's like a big deal. It's a tournament that I wrestled in twice as a junior and senior in high school. No, excuse me, sophomore, junior high school. So I was there. I remember I went in 2019, just 7, 8 years after I had been there. But this time on the other side, presenting the awards to the young women that were competing. And I realized, like, oh my goodness, all these girls would have beat my behind back when I was in high school. Like, they
Yeah.
were levels above and skill wise and strength and everything than what I was just a few years before that. And not only that, but the number doubled. So the amount of
Wow.
women that were at that tournament doubled. And now women's wrestling is one of the fastest growing sports in college. And so, like, to see that, it made me just want to tear up almost
Yeah,
because,
for sure. Because you look
yeah,
at the volume of participation, you
for
look at the
sure.
enhancement of performance, and it's things that you're pausing for a moment, you're self-reflecting, you're going down memory lane,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
being explorative around your ideation around where were you at that time? Where can I relate? Oh wow, the performance markers from these women in comparison to when I was there have evolved like 10x,
exactly.
which is
Exactly.
so eye-opening. You're almost like, shit, I got to work harder now because these girls are coming up to chase me. I
100%.
got to figure it out. They're coming for my job.
100%.
So,
And that's what breeds excellence, though, is when generations and generations improving it better. Like, every 10
mhm.
years, you just see the levels, then even less than 10 years, 5 years, you see the levels improve. And I saw the same thing in boxing as well. I started boxing at 19, 20 years old. And
That's late
very late, very late. But
because you were a wrestler first, right?
right, right. I was a wrestler, and at the Naval Academy, they didn't have women's wrestling. So I kind of fell into boxing by accident because it was a requirement for all freshmen at the Naval
Mm.
Academy to take wrestling and to do boxing for a semester. So boxing was never originally a part of my plans. My plans were really to be a collegiate wrestler. I'm glad it didn't happen because I don't know where I'd be today had I gotten my way. You know,
Yeah.
when I was
Wrestling's dope. There's just not as much of a future in it.
no, there's not. There's
It's really difficult on the
yeah,
spectator eye, right? Like when
it
you're
is
involved in sports and performance, it's like, oh wow, you really respect it. Like jujitsu, it's really respectful. It's incredible to see the human chess
for
taking
sure.
place and all the people that are participants in those different types of grappling sports significantly are high performers in the real world. Unfortunately, when you
100%.
put that stuff on camera, it's not like basketball, football, or baseball as far as like totally understanding or like being able to understand exactly what's going on. But because of knockout culture, the UFC has popularized it a little bit.
They have, but they've also penalized people that are heavy wrestlers. If you've
Yep.
noticed, you know, you look at someone like Colby Covington almost got cut from the UFC because of his style, not because he was on a losing streak. He was
Yep.
the unanimous decision guy that would just wrestle his ass off and beat you with pressure. But, you know, at the end of the day, especially UFC, they want to see knockouts. People in boxing want to see knockouts. And there's even comments towards certain boxers like Shakur Stevenson. People are calling him boring or saying that he doesn't want to engage. And it's like his skill is so high that he doesn't get hit. He's going to put as much damage and punishment on his opponent without getting touched, without getting hit. That is the art of
Mm-hmm.
boxing. You don't have to be a
Oh yeah.
knockout artist in order to be a good boxer, but people, again, to the naked eye, they don't see that or understand that. They just see someone that's not knocking someone out, so they get bored. And same thing with wrestling.
Yeah.
It's annoying, but wrestling's similar. It's like if you don't understand it, that was an amazing takedown, or person got back points, they threw him over the back of their head, they got 4 points, they push him out of bounds, or it's a close match. If you don't understand the technicality of the sport, it's not the most exciting thing to watch. So I agree with you
Yeah.
100%. So
It's so interesting how entertainment seems to be a little bit of a, maybe filter is not the wrong word, but it penetrates the headspace of not only the consumer but also the judges. And it's like, I mean, we see it in the sport of fitness, people that may be a
oh
little
yeah,
bit flashier, that can lift big weights or do the unique gymnastic skills that look great on an Instagram caption or on an Instagram reel rather.
100%.
They kind of stand out a lot more than the people that are maybe like just grunt work specialists that can move weight consistently. They stay injury free. They're really not that flashy. They're not really winning anything, but they're also never out of the top 10. And there's something
Exactly.
to that. That's like the beauty of sport in the sense of just like hanging on and constantly just kind of knocking on the door, but you're not necessarily like kicking the door open, and you're also not like creating a fire outside the door where it's really captivating, but you're just kind of there. And there's
Yeah.
something to that it's almost like when you look at the human experience, so much of life is not the peaks or the valleys. It's rather the mundane. It's the
Yeah.
nuance of just like waking up and having breakfast. It's like answering emails. It's brushing your teeth. It's using the restroom. It's going for a walk. It's hydrating. That stuff's not really that sexy, but
No.
without it, you're fucked.
100%.
Like you need the simple shit, and the simple shit seems to work time and time again. And it's just it's a really interesting thought process, like whether you're like captivating off camera or a captivating inside the octagon. It's really difficult to kind of measure the success of an athlete because the media just doesn't want to follow you if you're kind of just mundane.
It's 100% true. There are a lot of incredible fighters and people that no one knows about that all they did was train, all they did was win, and then they went home. And they were a lot less of a big deal than those, like, for example, like Ryan Garcia, who's not a world champion by any means, but is so flashy and is so loud that all your attention is drawn to him. He's got more followers than 90% of the people in the boxing community and has more eyes on him, has more people talking about him than a lot of fighters that are like significantly better. But because they stick to their routine, they keep it simple, they just focus on their craft and winning, they don't get as much attention. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced it myself. I don't have a crazy following. I'm like almost at 10K followers, but my resume doesn't align with the following. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that has to do with, like, I don't necessarily do the flashy, sexy, cool stuff all the time, especially in boxing. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to work on my skills. I'm trying to hone in my craft. I'm not going to do a 30 punch combination and like speed up the video to make it look way better than it is. I'm not going to give somebody like fake content just to entertain them. I will go entertain you on the piano with skill. I'll play a beautiful song. I'll layer it with harmonies and do stuff that you can't do. Not you, but anyone watching. A lot of people can't do that. You might not
Totally.
understand it. You might not understand that that was a 3-part harmony, and I learned that by ear just listening to a song one time I played on piano, which is impressive. You might not understand it, but it's raw. It's real talent. And I will get into that later in the conversation. That is something that I want to bring into the boxing world, is like actual raw talent and ability to entertain, not just with the words coming out of my mouth, but with actual abilities. And there's a reason why I'm walking out to Michael Jackson for this fight. There's a reason why my outfit is dedicated to Michael Jackson. I'm doing all this because my whole life I've been imitating and dancing like him, and I have footwork. I can do the moonwalk. It's silly, but at the same time, I promise you, it'll be a highlight reel because It's never been done in the sport. You've never
Hmm.
seen someone walk out, moonwalk, and move like him for a freaking walkout. You don't see that.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's cool. It's different, and it
Dude,
might
I'm
catch your
pumped to see
attention.
that.
I can't wait for you to see it,
I
but
can't wait to see that. As a
I've
kid,
been planning it.
I love it. I saw the reel that you made a little bit with, and I was like, okay, this girl can move a little bit. This is
Not too
dope.
bad, right? No, I
Not
appreciate
bad, not bad.
it.
And as a kid, my parents couldn't get a glove off my hand. I just wore one glove all the time. I
Really?
was always wearing the single glove like Michael Jackson. Like there's something to that level of culture that relates, right? Like he's doing something different, but more importantly, he's out there having fun. And I think
100%.
that was the deeper question that I wanted to explore with you is, so many people say time is our highest form of currency, right? But
Yeah.
in modern day social media, you could probably make the argument that maybe attention is the highest form of currency, possibly. That's not necessarily a measured opinion, but it's something that is observable, and it
Right.
does live in the arena of our day-to-day lives. But with that being said, what I'm hearing when you speak, which is so cool, is fuck everybody else's opinion. If I do the hard work consistently day in and day out, I don't really need the sexy blue check mark on my forehead for your external validation because I know I put in the work. What matters is when you look yourself in the eyes when you brush your teeth that like, I did the right thing when nobody was watching. I put my grocery cart away. I did the hard work. I didn't leave any crumbs. I'm not living my life where I have to humbly look over my shoulder all the time and wonder what if. I've got my eyes on the prize, which is I'm trying to get a little bit better every single day
Yep.
to create a great story to then pay that forward to the next generation. And there's something to that is invaluable that's not really measured by followers or a bank account or by notoriety or magazines or by your entourage. It lives in between your ears and it lives in your heart and your soul. What comes to mind when I kind of share it in that fashion of like the secret sauce is doing the right thing when nobody's watching. It's easy to perform when the cameras are on and everybody's looking at you.
Yeah.
But who are you when nobody's there and it's just you? Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinyan Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinyan is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag or even an overnighter. Kinyan's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinyan.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
For one, bingo, because this is something that I've tried to vocalize before, and it's very hard to put a finger on it when you're trying to explain it. I think there's going to be a wave in the next couple years where people are going to want leadership and want realness, and they're going to be hungry for it because we're in this weird period of time where everything's about instant gratification and everybody is an influencer. Everybody has something to say about something they know nothing about. Everybody's a professional boxer. Everybody's a professional CrossFitter. So it's like, but the thing is that can only last so long. Eventually they crack because then you have to actually prove yourself. And for me, my moment to prove myself is September 27th. And all the things that I've worked for and all the rejection I've experienced, which I haven't even gotten into it with you about it, the rejection that I've experienced with boxing, winning the Olympic trials and not going to the Olympics because of politics, winning multiple national titles and championships and beating Team USA members and still not being on the team. When someone gets tested like that, when life throws those types of situations at you and you keep coming back, you're showing the universe, you're showing God, whatever it is that you believe in, that you don't have any fucking quit in you. And people like that, I believe people like myself are the ones that end up at the top and that get there and show the fucking world, like, this is what it's about. It's not about the instant gratification. It's not about the likes, the follows. It's about getting kicked in the face by life and being rejected and being told no and still having the will to get back up and to keep trying. Like that, there's no better feeling than getting your hand raised or having that moment after the world just turned a blind eye to you. And it sounds dramatic, but like, this is my comeback. This is my FU, honestly, to USA Boxing and everybody that ever doubted my skills or abilities or that didn't give me the chance that I earned, right? This is the comeback. There was no going back. There was no like downfall. I didn't do anything. I didn't lose at the Olympic trials. I won. I did my job. So now I'm going to come back even harder. So that's what I don't know if I answered your question, but there's a certain type of drive that I believe you have to have where you're willing to do it even when the world's like, don't do it. Just give up. Move on. You got to be willing to keep going.
What was that experience like? You're the 2024 Olympic Trials boxing champ. What happened in that scenario where you weren't then invited to the 2024 Olympics?
So there's a couple things. In boxing, for one, you have multiple qualifying tournaments that are supposed to take place after the Olympic trials for basically Team USA to take those Olympic trials winners and say, okay, here are the qualifiers. Go qualify. Once you're qualified for the Olympics, you go to the Olympics. The first step is always supposed to be win the Olympic trials. That's supposed to be, and that's for every sport like wrestling, track and field, swimming. You have to win the trials in order to qualify for the Olympics. The first thing that happened, which was not okay, which was messed up, is that they put the first qualifier in October of last year, before the Olympic trials. So they had already hand selected the team that they wanted for the Olympics several months in advance. And they took that team to the first qualifier. And right there, then and there, of the 13, 5 people qualified. 5. So those spots that were qualified were automatically stripped from any importance in terms of the Olympic trials because, look, sorry, but this person already qualified for the Olympics. They're not going to the Olympic trials. It's very confusing. Basically, Team USA gave a whole opportunity for their favorites, the people that they hand selected, to go qualify for the Olympics before the Olympic trials happened. Then the Olympic trials happened, right? They took all those people that won the trials. They brought them to a camp, including myself, in January of this year, and had us go through an evaluation process where they evaluate our skills, our tactics, our techniques, our defense, our offense. They would put us in test matches against the number ones to see who they believe is better. And then after that camp, they would decide on the remaining people that hadn't qualified who they believe would be a better pick for the Olympic team. So in summary, the Olympic team was essentially hand selected. And of the 13 that qualified and that won the Olympic trials, not a single one of us went to the Olympics because of this process. It's very confusing. And to this day, people that have been boxing for a long time still don't understand it. And when I try to explain it, usually it takes me like an hour because I can go back, I can trace it back to when I first got on the team back in 2021 and how, again, this process took place where I won the 2021 Nationals, for example, January came, they never invited me to camp. I stopped, TKO'd the number one girl in the country at that 2021 Nationals. They ended up taking her to the World Championships and to another championship called the Stranda Tournament in Bulgaria. They took the person I beat. And I didn't just beat her, I stopped her, which means the referee was like, this fight's over. It was that bad. So it wasn't a close fight. It was a pure, complete domination, and they still picked someone else over me. So it's a very weird situation because wrestling doesn't do this. Like I said, all these other individual sports, they don't play like that. They take the
I'm
winner.
so intrigued by this. Like, I love hearing the passion in your voice, but also the frustration, because you're thinking, oh, they're going to evaluate based on performance. The performance should be the indicator as to how you move on to the next phase or to get assigned to Team USA for the Olympics.
Competition is what they should use, but they don't. They've completely shielded their select individuals that they want. They shielded them from competing, which competition is the indicator, the best indicator of who the best is. You know?
What do you think is the, in observation and communication with your team, what seems to be the limiting factor when people evaluate you as a boxer? What seems to be their perception, and what's kind of an intrinsic motivating strategy within your training? Is it size? Is it power? Is it skill set? Is it footwork? Is it that you're naturally and innately a wrestler before a boxer and that you started boxing so late? What seems to be the perception when they evaluate you?
That I don't have the Olympic style of boxing. The Olympic style of boxing is a lot of jab, lean back, 1-2, lean back, check hooks. It's a lot of in and out. It's a type of movement that is supposed to show clear point scoring. It is a point scoring type of fighting that they have ingrained into the team to become obsessed with. It's called the in and out, because you're literally playing a game of tag. This style of boxing, if you kind of look at the history of it, is taken from an old scoring system where they use clickers, where all the judges had to click on either the red or the blue. Oh, I got some
That's cool.
celebration. So red corner, blue corner. So all the judges had to click on the red corner in order for the punch to count, or they clicked on the blue corner in order for the punch to count for the blue corner. So basically, all the judges had to be in agreement with these clickers in order for a point to count. This was back in the 90s, the scoring system, the clicker system, which favored people that played tag because it's easier to see a punch when you're landing it and you're back out. You're landing it, you're back out. You throw a clean check hook and you're out of the way. You're leaning out of the way to show the judges, look, boom, that's a point. That's a point. That style, right, is no longer important because we don't use the clicker system anymore. Now it's the regular 10-9, 10-8 pro style judging. So now we have pretty much adopted this outdated system, and that style is not a style that I was very good at. That wasn't my style. My style is I like to be in there, I like to box, and I like to throw and be aggressive. They don't like that style. So essentially I was told, you don't have a good international style of boxing.
So it's almost like the Floyd Mayweather style works, right? Like he's in, he's out, he's hard to touch. He's still entertaining, right? Like he's dodging, he's everything, but it's like you're telling me, for a novice like myself, like you're attack mode more like a Mike Tyson back in the day. And some of these guys are just kind of playing within the semantics and the nuance of the score rather than an actual fight.
Right. They're obsessed with throw 3 to 5 punches every 3 to 5 seconds because statistically, when you look at math, you will be more likely to land more punches. Screw the math. Screw the statistics. At the end of the day, this system failed because the USA brought back 1 bronze medal for our boxing team. 1 bronze medal. So we can talk about how the system works. We can sit here and argue, but at the end of the day, it didn't work because that system that was taught to that team for the past 3 years did not work because we did not do well at the Olympics. So maybe if we had stuck to keeping the fighters the way that they grew up fighting, using the style that made them the champions that they became, and letting them have that sense of identity as a fighter and use that in the Olympics, I believe the performance would have been a lot different. Instead of trying to
Yeah, for sure.
change, right? Instead of trying to change people, let them fight the way that they fight. We didn't do that as a team.
There's also just like a biological conversation, right? Like thinking about just like sheer fighting, and let's
Yeah.
just remove the scorecard out of it. And like if you're actually fighting, there's an energy, there's a movement protocol, there's in out, there's also like a fear, right? Like
Right.
you think about like that Mike Tyson fear. Not a lot of people were afraid of, you know, some of these other boxers that are dipping and dodging like a Floyd Mayweather, but people were afraid of Mike Tyson.
One punch.
And it
Yeah.
one punch, man. I'm excited to see if he ends up coming back for that Jake Paul fight. You think it's actually going to get thrown down, or what do you think's going to happen?
We'll see. Um, we'll see. I think they're 2 minute rounds and they're in
Yeah.
16-ounce gloves. So it's designed to kind of help somebody with less experience, if you know what
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Um,
So I mean, we'll
we'll
see, right?
see.
Like I mean, I also have to say, I mean, I've heard Rogan talk about it a lot, but Jake Paul's not a novice, man. I mean, that dude's fought some really good fighters. He can move a little bit. Like he seemingly has put his money where his mouth is. You know, I have no idea if there's behind the scenes fabrication for media purposes. I mean, I have no clue there. I'm observing and I'm seeing the guy's resume and I'm like, dang, this dude seemingly can hang a little bit. Do you think have you ever seen him box in person? Like what are your thoughts on his style and his ability?
As a boxer, I think he's not that great. I think when you're
Yeah.
boxing against MMA, retired MMA fighters, it's very easy to look good because MMA
Okay.
fighters notoriously struggle with throwing straight punches. They're very
Mhm.
wide. MMA fighters are they're looking for the knockout in the 4 ounce
Yeah.
gloves. So he fights a lot of people. The only real boxer he fought was Tommy Fury, and he lost.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think he's decent. I think he's a very good athlete. As a boxer, I'm looking at his stance, his super wide stance. He's on a tightrope. Um, he kind of abandons the jab after the first couple of rounds. I think that for the experience that he does have, he is decent. But I
Mhm.
still know amateurs that could beat him right now. I know amateurs that could beat him just because of the experience level and just the amount of fights. Fighting also someone much smaller than you in the pros, it's different because you have these small gloves, you have no headgear. So when there is a 30-pound difference, 20-pound difference between weigh-in day and fight day, which there was in his last fight, it it adds up. So all I ask, is hey, get in the ring with somebody like Tommy, who is an actual boxer in your size and age. Not someone that's almost 40 years old, that's retired, that can barely talk because they've been punched in the head so many times. Like they're like literally
Yeah.
talking like this. Like, no offense, Nate Diaz, but like he's taking a lot of shots to the head, man. Like he's punch
Yeah.
drunk a little bit. All
Yeah.
respect to him. He's a legend in MMA, but the true test would be, now in boxing, it's normal to fight a lot of people that aren't great in the beginning of your career. But once you get to like 9 fights, that's when you start to up the level of your competition. It's
Mhm.
usually like the journeyman. Have you heard that term, journeyman? The
Yeah.
journeymen are basically the guys that are like, look, I need the paycheck. Some of these guys are like 5 wins, 35 losses in the pros. Their job is to lose. So you fight your journeyman the first couple fights. You establish your confidence. Then you slowly start to increase the level of your opponent. So now you start fighting people that have records that are closer to yours. Maybe 6-2 or 7-1, around that same age. Not someone that's 42. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to seeing with Jake Paul after he fights the 60-year-old man. I'm looking forward to seeing him get in there with somebody maybe a little bit more his level. But that's my
Mhm.
opinion. as a boxer.
No, it's totally fair. And it's, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with what you just said. My default pushback is kind of like, he's not even a boxer. He's a YouTube sensation that runs businesses and is a pseudo celebrity. And the fact that he does all of that and he seemingly does the boxing and monetizes it the way he does as more of an entertainer than a professional boxer, just from my observation, that's pretty cool. And he seemingly makes it where you want to click, you want to watch, you want to see what's going on. And, you know, I'm no expert in the sport, but I love seeing just the confidence. I love seeing the pseudo perception that, you know, some people love him, some people hate him. And then there's like this middle ground of people that are just like genuinely curious. I think it's just a unique, interesting marketing strategy that is just kind of him being him. I don't know too much about him, but I love hearing the professional opinion from people like yourself. I want to take a little bit of a leap real quick to a very controversial subject, which some people are really, really upset. And you know exactly where I'm going right now, which is this transgender conversation in the sport of boxing. We saw it in swimming. We've seen it in a few different sports. And a lot of people are really upset with the issue that we saw in the Olympics with a biological male participating in women's boxing and throwing down those punches, which there's so many different variables to consider there. But what are your thoughts on that topic, and what do you think should be done for the safety and the professionalism of the sport?
So she's actually born a woman. She has reproductive organs. She has a Y chromosome, I believe. Okay. So that's where it gets very intricate and kind of becomes a gray area, because she's also from a country where being trans is not even legal. Like, it's not even allowed. So to call her trans isn't fair, because she's not. And at first I was pretty upset. I was like, how could they do that? And then when I read into it, I was like, oh, crap.
Right. And that's another thing to consider, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm speaking from seeing the headlines. I'm seeing all the Instagram stories. Right. Like, I didn't actually get into the weeds. And it just goes to show, like, the fucking media and manipulation. Like,
oh, for sure.
Explain it better. Right.
Yeah.
And like, maybe that's my fault for not digging into it even deeper, but I appreciate you providing a little bit of context there. But I didn't mean to interrupt, but going back to your thoughts on the subject.
And then the other interesting thing too is the person that pulled out from the fight from Italy, that girl. I don't know if you saw that incident where she acted like she got hit so hard that she couldn't handle the power. She had actually been sparring partners and trained with this woman many times. They've been in the ring many times. So that was all act. And there's actually videos of that girl in another fight pretending to roll her ankle and then dramatically falling to the ground. So again, peeling back the onion, you realize there was another agenda on the other side where people were trying to paint a picture. And when you really do your research, you realize, oh, this is not what I thought it was. So at first I was upset. I was like, how could this happen? How could they let this happen? But then when I did more research, I realized that it's much more of a gray area. Now, if you ask me, do I believe that trans women should be able to compete in a combat sport against cis women? That's when we get into a tougher conversation, because my whole life I have been in the room as probably one of two women, max 3. I've wrestled men, I've grappled men, I'm a blue belt jiu-jitsu. I've done multiple different types of martial arts, not just boxing. And I will tell you that when I was 11, before all the boys hit puberty, I was beating them up. It was great. I was like, hell yeah, I got muscles, like they're all chubby. As soon as they hit puberty and things dropped, if you know what I mean, those same boys, within a year or two, were night and day strength in terms of what I was able to handle. And those people that I was beating were now beating me. And it had nothing to do with skill. It had nothing to do with training. I was training just as much as them. I was practicing just as much as them. I was doing the same drills. It was based off of biology. And in boxing, I have sparred women from having no amateur fights to women who have had 30, almost 40 professional fights. I have never been hit hard enough by a woman where I was dropped to the ground. I have sparred multiple men as a female fighter, and I've been dropped badly by a man one time, and he didn't even throw with his full power, and he wasn't even the same weight as me. He weighed less than me, and he didn't hit the hook as hard as he could. He just hit it in the right spot. I went down. So there is a absolute power difference, and there's a biological difference between men and women. There's biological differences between cisgendered women and transgender women. And due to those differences, I believe there is an advantage for someone that doesn't have reproductive organs. It doesn't have to deal with the period. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's not just strength, right? Like, think about weight cuts. If you ever talk to a woman about a weight cut when they're on their period, you bloat 6 pounds out of nowhere. Your body physiologically, your strength, your power, it varies throughout the month. There's a lot of different things that go into it. Your bone density, right? Just things that you don't worry about when you are not a cis woman, that cis women have to deal with in this sport. And so that's where it's a very difficult conversation. It's not easy. I don't enjoy speaking about it, but I will speak about it as a female fighter who has had experience sparring and fighting and training and practicing with men and women.
Yeah, totally.
It's tough. It's not easy.
It is tough, but I appreciate the insight, and I also think it gives a little bit of context for those of us that aren't in the sport to better understand the headspace and the ideology that you approach it with. You're seeking to understand, which I think is great. You're holding space for it, and rather than just judging right off the bat, you're like, okay, let me understand this a little bit better. And I think that's really courageous and honorable. You're not just judging right off, the headline like some asshole like me did.
No, it's okay. I did at first.
But
honestly, I did.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like,
that's the easy thing to do, which is why I love having people like yourself on, so I can better learn and upgrade my operating system and hopefully pay that forward to other people that are trying to understand sport and this ever changing life that we're seeing 100%. Evolve and there's so much nuance and complexity seemingly by the hour these days. Jumping into the cut conversation, that's hard enough as a man with testosterone. What's that like when you add in, a menstrual cycle and trying to optimize hormones and get enough calories and make sure you're not falling into the land of anemia? And then there's the pain component, there's cramping, there's so many things that need to be taken into consideration. And then, you can even take it a step further and, at least what I've observed in the sport of fitness, some of these women are so lean that their hormones just change abruptly. Yeah. They're constant elevated cortisol. Their menstrual cycle completely goes away.
Yeah.
And, that's not good either. And so it's hard to find the optimal dosage. Do you work with a special nutritionist? Do you have an OBGYN that helps guide some of your training and protocols? Like, what's the management structure like for cutting and optimizing your hormones in and around your period?
To be honest, I don't work with professionals. I've gotten like a professional body scan, like index on body fat percentage when I was at the Olympic Training Center. And I know my percentage roughly based off of the weight depending on the weight that I'm at. So for me personally, I know that as a woman, the water you cut is less than what a guy usually can cut. So if I'm, for example, fighting at 140, which I am, there's a lot of guys that could easily do a 10-pound water cut the day before the weigh-in. Due to water loading. I don't know if you've heard of water loading. It's when you like drink a lot of water. Someone's like 1.5 gallons Monday, Tuesday, a gallon, Wednesday, a gallon, then Thursday and Friday, basically nothing. You let your body flush out. You sweat, you go in the sauna, you do some jump roping. and you basically dry out your body to where the weigh-in day, Friday, for example, you're able to like get on the scale without being depleted of like your actual energy, just water, just for a short period of time. That's usually what the goal is to go into a water cut very hydrated, so that when you get down to that last 5-10 pounds, depending on who you are, it really depends on obviously muscle mass as well and size. A guy that's 200 pounds could do a 20-pound water cut. Someone that is 150 pounds might be dangerous, right? So really it comes down to that, how hydrated you are, how much sodium you have in your body. That's another thing. If you're eating a lot of salty foods, you're going to retain water. And unfortunately, being a woman, if you're on your period, that also causes you to bloat and retain water. But for me personally, once I get below 150, I stop having my period, like completely. So I'm kind of diving into that zone right now, which is not fun, but it is one less thing that I worry about because I don't really have my periods when I'm below 150. Now I'm trying to get my body used to being back in the high 140s. So I do it week by week. Right now, tomorrow I need to be 149. I got to see the scale at 149. A week from that, I got to see the scale at 147. And then a week from that, right around weigh-in week, my goal is to see the scale at 146. And then the day before the weigh-in, we do a 5-pound water cut. We go into that water cut hydrated so that it's just a very limited amount of time. We don't have a whole lot of water, but it's not like I'm cutting water for the next month to the point where like I'm completely dehydrated and I'm peeing brown. That's not the way to
That's
go.
tough.
That's very tough, especially if you have to perform and fight in a multiple round fight. So that's kind of where I'm going. I'm giving myself markers to hit over the next few weeks. I was around 159 in like May, June, and slowly bringing it down. The diet, I'm really sticking to very basic stuff like yogurt, peanut butter, banana for breakfast. Lunch is like brown rice, ground turkey, vegetables, and dinner will be like a light salad. As the day goes on, get closer to nighttime, I decrease the carbs just because, metabolism and everything at nighttime kind of slows down. The carbs are usually front loaded the beginning of the day when I'm doing all the workouts and all the training, and then I slowly decrease it to like very limited. So that's like a short version, but kind of how it works with the weight cuts and
No,
stuff.
totally. I like hearing how you're gradually and progressively kind of lowering it just a little bit. What advice would you give to other women that are in sports that have weight cuts, whether that's weightlifting or gymnastics or, something like this? What advice do you give towards that? Because that can not just be like a physical and biological alteration,
Yeah, it's
but
here
it could
too.
also be really mental. And, within women's sports, because there is a sex appeal, because that is, something that you
100%.
see on social media, on Instagram, you see it, shown all over the place. Like, it is something that I do believe should be taken into consideration as far as just the advice that you could share that could potentially help people as they're kind of managing weight cuts and body image.
100%. I would say for one is you need to, whoever this is who's listening, identify what weight you can get to that is safe. And by safe, I mean a weight where you are still you in there. Because there are certain weights that people go to that we've seen, like Chris Cyborg almost passed away
Yeah, I
trying to
remember
cut to
seeing that.
135. If you are like incoherent and you're barely able to function because of how much weight you're trying to cut, it's too low and it's not worth it. And the other thing
Yeah.
people don't realize is like every time you do a big weight cut like that, it changes you. You're not the
Oh,
same
yeah.
person after that. And weight cuts can destroy you. And not only just physically like you mentioned, but mentally. When you see your body at a weight that's not really who you are, you start to think that that's the new standard. So anytime you're not that weight, you don't even want to look in the mirror. And I've experienced that
Yep.
firsthand. I've dealt with that there are moments and times after tournaments where I would purposely not have the lights on in the bathroom because I didn't want to see myself in the mirror because I
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
shredded and didn't have the muscles and didn't have the look I did when I was fighting at 146 pounds. And it was almost a sense of embarrassment because I didn't look the way I did when I was competing. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to realize you had a mission to make a weight for a tournament. The only reason why you were trying to get to that weight was for the competition. Now that the competition is over, you need to go back to what is natural for you and realize that you are beautiful and that you're worthy and that you are good enough in your natural state. And that version of you, the really skinny or small or shredded, whatever version that is, it is a necessary means to an end for a competition. That's a mission that you have to accomplish. My mission is 140, but I'm not going to walk around 140 and I'm not going to make that my new standard because that's not who I naturally am. And so it's a thing, it's a work in progress. It's something you have to work on every single day. And it's not just women. I have met many guys in and out of boxing who have eating disorders, who have a lot of issues with their mental health when it comes to their bodies, and they hate the way they look when they're not a certain weight. So it's not just women, it's men too. So
No,
you
it's a
have to
great
attack it.
observation. Do you think it affects that level of confidence? Like when you walk into the ring and you're used to looking a certain way, feeling a certain way, do you think that it affects your confidence in that way?
To be honest with you, when you do get to that lower weight, you do have in my experience, a higher confidence just because of the aesthetic. And it's like, now I have muscles, now I'm ripped up, now I have, I'm lean and I look good, I feel good. It can give you confidence if you're doing it the right way, if you're doing it the healthy way where you're still eating enough, you're still hydrated, and you're not starving yourself or purging or doing things that are not good for you. It can bring you confidence, but it can kind of be the reverse if you're doing it the wrong way. Because if you do the weight cuts or you do these things incorrectly and you're not able to perform, and you might look lean and have abs, but you don't feel good, like that to me, it's not worth it at that point because now your performance and your mental health and everything is at risk, especially as a fighter, because when you do a hard weight cut, it's actual like liquid in your brain, the water in your brain decreases to the point where a small punch can basically rattle you and make you go to sleep. So you have to be very careful with that. You
Very
don't want to
cool.
cut too much.
For sure.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
Stephanie, what I want to chat with you next about is the land of performance enhancing drugs. We've seen it time and time again.
Yep.
We've got things used to help people with cuts, like we were just discussing, things that can flush your system really fast. And some of that is to make weight. Some of that's to get foreign substances out of the system. It's hard to know exactly what that is. There's the land of USADA.
Yep.
There's the land of contaminated meat, which we saw a little bit with Canelo Alvarez, which was like a really interesting, iffy conversation. Where does all this stuff land on the radar for you? Like, obviously, people are performing at a high level, and technically it's not cheating unless you get caught. And also, I think it's important to note that we are seeing the launch of an Olympic-style games with performance-enhancing drugs. And so it's an interesting conversation. I mean, a part of me wants to do the same thing, but then the other part of me is like, you know what? Let everybody take whatever they want. Let them get tested and let them figure out whatever peak expression is and throw down against other people that are also welcome to take whatever they want. And so when we unpack this conversation of performance enhancing drugs, where do you stand?
I'm very against it in the world of sports. When we talk about military, I don't really think it's a big deal. There's certain job fields where I believe it's acceptable. And certain sports too. I mean, like bodybuilding, I just feel like it'd be hard to not have it. I'm not saying it'd be impossible. But when you're talking about something like an Olympic sport, I think the great equalizer is the fact that nobody is supposed to be on anything. Like that's what's supposed to equal the playing field, especially when you're looking at where some people are from and where they're competing from, and the resources they have. And so, for me, I think it's also flat out cheating. It's cheating. At the end of the day, if you're told you cannot take X, Y, and Z because it's going to enhance your performance, or it's going to help you with the weight cut, whatever the excuse is, or it's going to help you with your lung capacity, EPO, is that what it's called?
Yep.
EPO.
That's what we saw, the blood doping from Lance Armstrong.
Right. TJ Dillashaw did it too with the UFC, big deal. But whatever the case may be, oh, it's coming back again. I just don't believe it's right, and I don't think it's a good example for people to do that. The crappy part though is that there are pretty much people at all levels doing it, and at the highest level, like you just mentioned earlier, Canelo, blamed on the meat. I think that's another issue. Like if you're gonna get caught, just admit it. Come forth and be honest and tell the truth. But when you blame it on something else to kind of cover up your tracks, I think that's even less honorable.
You know what's interesting about that is I thought the same thing early on. And then I was watching the Olympics this year, and there was a guy, I don't remember his name, but he was in the 100-meter final against Noah Lyles. And apparently he had tested positive earlier in the year and blamed it on contaminated meat. And the meat got tested, and they ended up, it was contaminated. And I'd never heard that before. And so I had the same response, like eyebrow raised, jaw drop a little bit, like, oh shit, like maybe there's something to that. Like at first I called bullshit, and then I was like, oh, well, clearly there was something within that investigation that most of the public is unaware of. Yeah. And so whether that's a big reach or, somebody was paid behind the scenes to keep quiet or, let him pass to get into the Olympics, I don't know the answer to that question, but at the end of the day, like you're responsible for what goes in your mouth, what goes into your body, what goes into your digestive system, whether it's a contaminated meat, contaminated substance, supplement, whatever that is. I don't know. I also think there needs to be like nuance and a little bit of discretion of how much, right? If it's like so minute, that maybe poses the question of maybe crossing paths with a contaminant. But if the dosage is really high, it's like, really?
It's obvious.
Really?
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious at that point. And also, but that also raises the question of just a gray area of, okay, they were taking it. Someone that has as much money as someone like Canelo clearly has doctor prescriptions behind the scenes. There's people that are very invested in him that probably get a trickle down of all the money that he's making. If the dosage is really low, well, maybe that's because they diluted it out of his system in the most doctor-prescribed way that they possibly could. I don't know. I mean, it's a fair question to ask. I don't know Canelo. I don't know anything about his camp. I'm just playing the speculation game here out of curiosity.
I think about that quite often, and I was literally thinking of this exact conversation before we had it. I was like, at some point, I feel like we're going to talk about Canelo. I just feel it. Just because I would hope that what he's saying is true, especially somebody of that caliber and someone of that level of a fighter. But we really don't know. And that's not even the craziest one I've heard. And if you want, I'll go into the craziest one I've heard. Where it's like
Do it. Do it.
somebody had semen in their system because of, you know, performing oral sex and blamed it on that's how it entered their system. And
Yeah,
that
we've
was
seen that in the CrossFit space before too.
yeah, it's like how much of that would have to be? I don't know. I'm not gonna do the research because I don't even want to know. But like, who knows, man? Sometimes weird things happen. Medical stuff can be a little bit strange, but then at the same time, I want to be like, is that really what happened? Because that sounds crazy. So it's a toss up.
Yeah.
I just wish though that people would be honest, and if they really did get caught, just own up to it and just be real. Because then the people that actually are the unlucky ones that got caught up in a situation like that, the meat or whatever the case would be, they now will look like they're liars if everybody's lying, even if maybe they were telling the truth.
Yeah.
So
No, totally. I'm curious your thoughts here. You look at like most job markets in the world. Somebody performs well, they get a raise, they get a bonus structure. That's a version of success, right? Hey, I'm moving up the corporate ladder. I'm making more money. I'm doing the thing. I'm better than I was last year. Sometimes sports doesn't get categorized as like, at the end of the day, it's business. It's a job.
yeah,
And when you look at someone like Canelo or someone like a John Jones that have both popped or tested positive for certain substances, cocaine is what I understand for John Jones, and then the contaminated meat for someone like Canelo, and then EPO for other high-performing athletes. It's just an interesting conversation because they ended up winning. They ended up generating attention. They ended up making more money. Is that the game, right? Is the game to do it at all costs, knowing that you're monetizing, right? Like, to me, I think it would be difficult to like look myself in the mirror and own the success at the nature of stepping on somebody else or doing it the not right way. But then when you flip that script, it's like I'm trying to understand the ideology or the justification that somebody may make in order to have some sort of monetary or business or career success. Maybe they didn't even win, but they made the money. That's like legacy type wealth that some of these guys are making that's going to pass on for generations on generations. I mean, the millions of dollars that Canelo is making, like it's insanity to me. Like, if he's winning that, he's able to pay his team, he's able to provide legacy wealth. I don't know. Like, some people might argue, hey, I'd probably do it too. And I'm not saying I would do that, but it is something to explore mentally, to understand, like, what's the ultimate goal? Is it to win and have this undefeated nature similar to, Mayweather, or is it to monetize and just enhance your career earnings?
that's a great question. I think another layer to that is the fact that I truly believe, based off my sources, people that I know that in this boxing game, boxing and MMA, it's more than half are on stuff that they shouldn't be. So when you really look at it, you as somebody that, whoever that doesn't want to take steps, that wants to do things the right way, you are now almost at a disadvantage because everybody else, not everybody else, but a big percentage of the top people are either cycling or doing something that's not truly allowed. So when you look at it that way, I think if you look at it that way, then it makes it easier to be like, you know what? If this is what I have to do in order to be on the equal playing field as the people around me that are winning and that are freaking crushing it, making millions of dollars, I get that argument. And I
Yeah.
I have thought about that. I've thought about like, what if I get in the ring with someone that is on stuff and she knocks me the flock out, and it turns out that she's on stuff. Like, will that change the way that I look at this sport? Will it change the way that I conduct myself in the sport? Will I look into things differently? I don't know. But I believe that, like, when you are doing those substances, you are kind of now eliminating the beauty of the sport, because the whole point of
Hmm.
sport is that there is no advantage. It's all either your natural ability or hard work, whatever your strength is, whatever it is that you bring to the table. When you start taking stuff and taking stuff that helps you, it kind of takes that specialness about it away. And
No,
it,
I definitely agree.
you
It
know,
becomes less about sport, and you're now a fucking science project,
you're a science
right?
project.
Like, right,
Exactly.
like you're basically tinkering in the lab, and how far can I take my potential? But I'm using these things that I know I'm not supposed to take, but then in reality, like, if I don't get caught, does it really matter? Like the famous question: if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, did the tree actually fall? Yes, the tree still fell, right?
Yeah.
Like you and I can
Yeah.
agree on those terms. The other thing that's an interesting dichotomy for me is, and I've seen this firsthand. Sometimes the people that take stuff, they don't work as hard. Sometimes they're
Oh,
like, oh, because I'm taking the
no.
thing, I'm gonna get some extra help. So I almost feel in some ways you're in a little bit of an advantage because of just sheer work ethic of like, I'm putting in the
100%.
reps, I'm putting in the time, the energy, the emotion. I'm doing it honestly, which just also gives you an extra level of confidence that like I squeezed every bit of juice out of this orange to maximize my Stephanie Simon potential. I think some of these other people are like playing that game. Oh, I can get by with taking this off day today because that supplement's going to help me maintain muscle mass or help me cut, or I don't know. That means that if you find them in that one moment during each one of those rounds where their fake confidence just drops a little bit, and they're like, "Oh man, I should have trained a little bit more. I wouldn't be as gassed right now." Or that
Right.
injury that I tried to heal real fast, right? Like you start having that internal self doubt. Like you can't fake it between the ears, or maybe you can, but not forever.
Not
And when you
forever.
find somebody on in that moment, that's when you attack, right? And that's where I give
Yeah.
someone like you the advantage. That's like, that's the cool part about sport is like, in some ways, it doesn't really matter because we're all humans. The substances are going to wear off. Like everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth. And then there's just this level of sheer will, resilience, and did you put in the work consistently over the course of time where what you did in the dark is now going
Yeah.
to shine in the light.
I believe that if you don't get knocked out before.
Of course.
And that's the thing, is like, some of this stuff gives you the kind of strength where it's one punch and you're out cold.
Mm-hmm.
If you're lucky enough to make it through the later rounds, where that does matter, the hard work, the grit, some people aren't. Some people don't make it that far because they're in there with
Mm-hmm.
somebody. And I don't know if you watched Ryan Garcia's fight. He did pop. He popped for two different things. And
What do you
during the
pop
weigh-in,
for?
I don't remember the exact. Is it Austrian? Austrian.
Okay.
But during the whole press conference and the build up to the fight, he was very vocal about how strong he is. I'm strong. I'm strong. And I've been drinking. I've been doing this. And you watch his videos of him working out, and he's in like corduroy pants and like slides, just hands are down, looking lazy. And it appeared as though, kind of like what you said, the work leading to this fight against Devin Haney was very minimum. But when he showed up, he was stronger and bigger than he's ever looked. And when he got on the scale, he was 3 pounds over. And he had to
Mm.
pay $500,000 per pound that he was over. Why was he
Oh,
over?
man.
He paid $1.5 million from his purse to Devin Haney because he could not make the weight. Why was he overweight? He's never missed weight like that before. Missing weight,
Mm.
not putting in the work in his camps. And then, you know what happened when he fought Devin Haney? He manhandled him. Like, beat him so bad, it was embarrassing. It was bad. but the power that he had, and the it was just surprising because Devin Haney's a guy that works his ass off. Someone that puts in the work, like we talk about, puts in the reps. This is his life. Devin Haney is a die-hard boxing guy. Like, he loves it. They both love boxing, but you could see in the camp, people thought Devin Haney would win just based off of his work ethic. And then he ended up losing. He got beat up. Like, he got beat up bad. And people were shocked because Ryan Garcia was drinking. He was partying. He didn't give a crap. He was barely training. He looked a little bit, it looked weird. And lo and behold, he ended up popping for two different things. So it's like, I don't know. It's messy. It's messy. Like, you might perform well, but if you get caught, now your reputation's on the line, and now people really don't respect you. They already didn't at first because they thought you were kind of a joke because you're like influencer guy, but now that you've been caught up cheating, it's like doubled the amount of disrespect. So it's a tough, for me, it's a tough topic, but I'm completely against it. I'm against it.
Such an
all the
interesting
way.
concept within sport. What are your thoughts on these enhanced games that are potentially, well, not potentially, that now have a bunch of funding that are coming our way, where everybody can take whatever they want, whenever they want? Obviously, they have to be drug tested and they have to be, in an appropriate space to perform, and evaluated by a doctor beforehand. But what do you think this is going to look like?
We're gonna see some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Like women with traps up to here, guys that are just like veins everywhere. I don't know. Or the opposite. Like, people don't even look at their own stuff, but they're on, like, stuff that doesn't make you big, EPO or whatever. Weight cutting supplements. It's gonna be interesting. I haven't put much thought into it, but I'm curious. I'm curious to see who shows up to those tournaments. And if any of those people are recognizable faces that were really good when they were clean and then went to the other side. I'm just curious.
That's an interesting point. Does that tarnish their reputation, or people are speculative that they were on stuff during their career?
Right.
Oh, that's an interesting thought process. I didn't even think about that. Well said.
Appreciate
Yeah, it'll
it.
be interesting to see how things evolve a little bit. Unpacking your headspace a little bit, is cool to understand the formulative thoughts that you have, the great value system that you have. What was your life like when you were young in the pursuit of trying to become this amazing, just well-rounded individual and then making it to the Naval Academy?
So from a young age, like I said earlier, I've always been an extrovert, people person, someone that loved entertaining people, loved being around people, loved making people laugh. I think I started getting the competitive edge and the athletic edge of, like, I want to freaking compete and fight and do all that when I was around like 8 years old.
Okay.
Right around 8 or 9 is when I started doing Taekwondo. And that's when I experienced my first ass whipping, like a first state tournament. I remember I went against a bigger girl and she kicked me really hard, like in the stomach, and I went flying. And I was on the ground, and I went flying back. It was very dramatic, very dramatic. And I remember being on the ground crying, and I looked at my mom, and she just did this, like, you can do this, you can do this. It was like a Rocky moment, I guess.
Oh, that's cool.
And when I came up and I got up and I beat her, I think that was the defining moment in my athletic journey where I was like, okay, I love competition. I love getting back up after I've been knocked down. I love the comeback. I love being the underdog. I love all this. Give me more. So yeah, around 8 or 9 years old, around that time, I started doing track and field, jumping, sprinting, but my biggest strength in track and field was throwing, discus, shot put, javelin. So by the time I was 11, I was wrestling, I was playing football, I was doing track and field, I was still doing Taekwondo. And then I also started diving more into music. I was in the band. I did band for all of middle school, all of high school. I really, really, really was passionate about music growing up because both my parents were very musically inclined. My mother grew up singing. When we were growing up, she would sing opera. She was classically trained. She wasn't professional, but classically trained in opera. My dad had an amazing ear. He's kind of where I got the ability to hear a song and play it on the piano. He could take any song he heard, go to the piano, play it immediately, just off of ear.
You know what's really cool about the ear is like, it's not just an amazing rhythmic component that translates to music and expression and respect for people that are doing the craft now, but it helps you evaluate the rhythm and the cadence in life.
Yeah.
You hear how people speak, you hear how they move, and then you watch them in sport. Like I played the trumpet as well.
Nice.
And I just remember watching guys in basketball, like you start to pick up on the sound of things. You're like, oh, when that guy dribbles, it always sounds like this. And it helps you be anticipatory to kind of where they're going to go and how they're going to move, because people become slaves to their habits.
Yeah.
And I think there's an audible component that allows there to be a translation of rhythm from music into sport.
100%.
And you can see that with the ba 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 of pushing or pulling or punching or grappling or the footwork of somebody. I mean, you remember those awesome Nike Gatorade type commercials?
Yeah.
And all the
I love
dribbling and the
those.
bouncing, like they were so dope. But like there's something to that I don't know, maybe there's a scientist that'll listen to me ramble and rant over here about this that like puts some research into that, because there's something to that unlocks a level of human performance that I think is not discussed too frequently.
Oh no, it's not discussed enough at all, but I completely agree. And this is my entire practice today at the gym for boxing was all rhythm, Stephanie. Use your rhythm. I want to see you do this. And my coach is literally popping, locking. He's like, do that.
Yeah.
And he's
When you talk about
boom.
boxing, I feel myself
You're
doing that over here.
dancing. This is a dance. And
Yeah.
in basketball too, 100%. The footwork, boom, juking, right? And in music, we have legato, right? It's more da da da. You know, sometimes you have those moments where you're trying to make your opponent think you're relaxed, and then staccato, boom. That's where you stop. You stick the, whatever basketball. I don't know basketball well, but you stick the shot, or even in boxing, you see them relax and you stick them with the jab. That staccato. That's just it's just like a music reference, or, like even in a song, you build momentum, right? You build momentum.
That's the crescendo.
That's the crescendo. That's like leading up to the big moment. And some people don't have rhythm in whatever sport they do, and you can see it, especially in boxing. It's very noticeable. A lot of people are very robotic, and they got their hands up, and they're just thinking like, "Let me hurt you," but those people, they might be strong, they might have very good, solid punching skills, but you can pick up on their rhythm very easily. It is boom, 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 step out. Boom, 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 step out. So all I got to do is boom, boom, lean back, boom, boom. Now I basically counteracted their rhythm because their rhythm is so easy to read in
That's what makes
music.
like James Harden or some of these guys, like even Kanye back in the day, like what made them good was they picked up on the consistency of rhythm, and they thought, okay, let me find a way to be a little bit different. Let me go against the grain. Let me be slightly off rhythm, but in a way that's rhythmic.
100%.
That throws you off where it's unpredictable. And then as a byproduct, it's transformative innovation that makes you really dangerous, not just in sport, but also in your ability to create new rhymes, new rhythms, new beats. There's something to that I really like.
100%. And I like the Kanye reference because that's what makes him him. Is he?
Oh yeah.
Just what's the song called where the piano is dun 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 dun. Have a toast for the douchebags. Have a toast to the asshole.
Oh yeah.
That song, all he's doing.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name of it though.
But it's a kind of terrible lyrics. But the fact that he just plays one note in a certain rhythm, then he goes an octave lower, then he plays it again. It's such a simple concept. But the way that he puts the song together and the way that he does everything, it's mind-blowing. Like your brain, when you first hear the song, you're like, this is so cool. I love the song. I don't know why I love the song, but I do. And it's not about...
But it's because it's disruptive.
It's disruptive. Exactly.
Everybody expects it to have complexity, but the simplicity of it...
makes it more complex.
And how it builds... Yeah, it builds and then it softens. And it's like, I can go fast, but I can go slow.
Yep.
I can go left, I can go right. I can also just
Be
be still,
100%.
right? And that's confusing because the natural human eye is like,
Boom, boom,
do, do,
boom.
do.
Yep.
And when you practice, like, hey, I'm just going to be. Oh, now I'm going to attack. It's the change of speed, the change of direction. It is the epitome of art. It's not paint it really fast. It's like go fast, but then also
Take your time.
go slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, be quick but not in a hurry, as John Wooden would say, right?
100%.
And I think that variance allows for this disruptive, unique expression because it's unpredictable, that's how you catch somebody on the jaw, right? Like somebody, if they're predicting it, it's like, oh, it's easy to avoid or dip and dodge. But it's like when you catch them with a move that has never been seen before, oh, that's when it's really cool. You know what? It's typically instinctual.
Yep. It's the punch you don't see. It's not the hardest punch that does the damage. It's the punches you don't see. Because you can block hard shots. Man, you can block. Hands are up. It's the one you don't see coming. It's the feint. Oh, my hands are down. Crap. Boom, I didn't see it. That's the punch. It doesn't even have to be a hard punch. It just has to be
for sure.
Unexpected. You know, kind of like what you were saying.
For sure.
So
there's a couple concepts I wanna dance with you on before we wrap it up today. You mentioned a term that really stood out to me, and it was punch drunk. And that's something that I think happens not just in boxing, but also in football. You see all the conversations around CTEs, the enhanced helmet innovation for protection. Help people understand what that means, right? Like across a lifespan, like how many times you get punched, you get hit, you get elbowed, you get kicked, twisted, turned, helmet to helmet. There's all kinds of targeting rules in the NFL now. But let's unpack that a little bit. Like, what does that term mean to you? And is that something that lives in your headspace as a high-level boxer that's making her professional debut in a couple weeks? How does that land in your headspace around, a decade plus now within the sport?
That's a great question. Your brain, your mind, your head is what makes you go. It's the thing that controls you as a person, right? So your thoughts, the actions, the ideas you have, everything that you do in your life, like this is where it all happens, right? So if you think about it, when you take a blow to this thing right here, whether it's an elbow, it's a knee, or it's whiplash, or just even a bunch of little punches in boxing, or it's a hard hit in football, you're taking damage to the brain, the mind, the thing that makes you. You're taking damage. A concussion, right? One concussion makes it so that the next concussion is a lot easier to get. So then when you have two concussions, I'm not an expert on it, but the more concussed you get, the easier it becomes to get concussed. And then next thing you know, you're like my good friend Max, who was having constant headaches 24/7, forgetting things, repeating yourself. It's scary to have and to see and to express those things when you're still young. These are things that you might see as normal for somebody that's a lot older, that has dementia, like 80s or 90s. It's very unfortunate. It's very sad to see that, but it's not out of the ordinary, unfortunately. But when you're somebody that is 40, somebody that is even in your 30s, that is starting to visibly show a difference in the speech. I have friends that you have to repeat stuff. They don't remember things. They speak in a way where it's almost like this, yeah, well, man, my homie from, I swear, it's scary. It's like you are disintegrating. You're disintegrating because your brain has taken too many freaking punches. And in my opinion, as a boxer, I can't speak for football. I did play a little bit as a kid, but in boxing, your defense is so freaking important. And yes, people love when people go to war. People love when people go to war and they're standing toe to toe. and they're just going, right? They see the blood everywhere. They see who's got more heart. People love it. But if you can avoid that, you have to. You have to. It is your duty to yourself to understand the fundamentals and the importance of defense, of moving your freaking head and keeping your hands up when you have to. Some people can fight with their hands low. I fight with my hands relatively low because I have fast reflexes. If you're somebody without fast reflexes, you're somebody that's a little bit slower, reflexive wise. You need to keep your freaking hands up and protect your head because it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth going to that war and to saying, yeah, I was the tougher guy, when 5 years down the line, you are barely able to talk. And I'm passionate about this because there's a reason why I told you 34. There's a reason why I told you.
Yep.
I'm not freaking taking any more blows to the head. I have an education. I have a military career. You know, I'm a Marine Corps captain. I play 5 instruments. I have other talents. I have other things. I have a sharp brain. Like I said, I can pick up songs that I hear on the radio and play them on the piano immediately. I can layer harmonies. I can do syncopations. I can imitate things. I have a sharp mind, and I want to keep that for as long as possible, which is why I've told myself I'm not boxing past a certain age because I do not think it's worth the damage that you receive from all those punches to the face.
For sure. There's life after sport. Sounds like we've got the female Ed Sheeran on the podcast today.
Oh, yeah? I'm in love with the shape of you. Don't tempt me. I have my guitar right over there. I'll freaking jam out right now. I will.
I love that. Well, let's end with that. Let's end with a song in a little bit. But before we do, I want to hear what you got in stock or in store for life after boxing. What are some of the things that you're tinkering with that you're excited to share with the world?
For sure. Like we spoke about earlier, songwriting, acting, entertainment. Like I've always had a visual of me being on SNL. I do a lot of accents. I do a lot of Irish accents. I can do Latino accent, anything you needing. You talk like this, you know, imitating people, wearing wigs, playing the instruments, just truly exploring the arts at all capacities. You know,
Let me hear Conor McGregor real quick.
I hit him with three punches right to the face. I hit him with the body shot right here. He didn't even know what to do. Okay, I kind of a three punch combination, bro. 3-punch combination. I'm the best in the world. I'm the best in the world. Number 1. Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that guy? That's all I can do.
Oh, this is good. You're
decent.
SNL, bring this girl on. That was fantastic. Well played.
It's only because I had an Irish coach for Team USA. He's from Ireland, so he'd always
cool.
Use your toys. When you're in your boxing sense, use your toys, bend your legs. Make sure you're nice and low, keep your hands up, move your head. All right, you want to have good defense, you want to be in and out of your feet. That's how he talks. That's an excuse why I go to the Irish accent. But yes.
That's freaking awesome.
Long story short, I want to get into entertainment, music. I write music. I've already written songs with my cousin out here in LA. We're going to start dabbling into short films. Just a bunch of fun, exciting things that don't require you to get punched in the head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So,
well, I'm pumped. Don't forget us on your radar when you get to life after boxing, and I'm excited to see the debut of your fitness commercial too with the famous Tony Horton.
Yes, it should be coming out anytime now. You'll see me punching a bag.
That's badass.
I'm not really like the main effort, but that's okay. I'm just excited that I was in the Tony Horton fitness commercial. Period. I think that's pretty cool. So, but yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. This was so fun. Let's wrap up. Pick a song. Pick a little short song that we can share with our audience.
Do you want me to play it? I can go grab the guitar.
Yeah, I think it'd be.
Okay.
Yeah, grab it.
Right.
I think it'd be fun to hear it real quick.
Here we go. Hold on, guys.
I'm pumped for this. I'm trying to think which song we should have her play. Maybe I'll have her play.
Let me know if you can.
What do you think?
Hear this.
What do you think? Should we do "Holy" by Justin Bieber?
Holy?
That one always sounds good on the acoustic guitar. Yeah. What you got? What's in your back pocket that you feel like playing right now?
I want to play something simple and a little bit old school Cali vibe. You know? Tell me if you can hear
Okay.
this. Can
Okay.
you hear that?
Yep. We got you.
Okay, here we go. Early in the morning, rising to the street.
Sublime.
Light me up that cigarette and I strap shoes on my feet. Dee-dee-dee-dee, got to find a reason things went wrong. Got to find the reason why my money's all gone. I got a Dalmatian, I can still get high. I can play the guitar like a mother. I'm gonna go right to it. Here we go. Life is too short to love the one you got, cause you might get run over or you might get shot. Never stop a static, I just get it off my chest. Never had a battle with my bulletproof vest. Take a small example, take it from me. Take all of your money, give it all to charity. Life is what I got, it's within my reach. In the sublime style, so straight from Long Beach. When it comes back to you, like to keep what you deserve. Trying to stand, you're bound to get served. Love's what I got, don't stutter right at. You'll feel it when the dance gets hot. Lauren, loving is what I got. Remember that loving is what I got.
Hey. Boom.
Boom. It ended there.
Ladies and gentlemen, you were one of the most special guests we've had on. It was a pleasure spending time with you, unpacking all things professional boxing. We're excited for your debut on September 27th in Atlanta.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, Stephanie Simon. Stephanie, where can people find you?
Follow me on Steph Simon Boxing on Instagram. My YouTube page is Stephanie Simon 123. I put on a lot of covers on there and like a lot of music stuff. And then I have another music account, Steffi Simon Sings, but don't worry about that one. Just follow those two. Okay. Steph Simon Boxing Instagram, and then Stephanie Simon 123 on YouTube. But thank you for having me.
Very cool.
Super fun.
Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation with Stephanie Simon, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time. Bye-bye, guys.